Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for a live session, first live session for 2021. This session is brought to you by the team at India's premium C-level two-wheeler event, Two Wheeler Forum, or as we are more popularly known, TWF. My name is Rohit Devan, and I am the event director at TWF. And for today's session, we have collaborated with Infineon Technologies and Bosch Limited to bring you a session on an often overlooked aspect of the two-wheeler industry, that is electronics and technological innovation. And the session is aptly titled New Electronics, Technologies and Trends in the Two-Wheeler Space. And in this session, you will obtain a very well-rounded view since we are being joined by senior leaders from across the two-wheeler ecosystem, be it OEMs, tier one suppliers, and industry analysts. So before we begin this session today, I just wanted to take this time to especially thank our partners, Infineon Technologies and Bosch Limited, for supporting this session. Infineon Technologies is a German semiconductor manufacturer founded in 1999 and has almost 50,000 employees worldwide. It designs, develops, manufactures, and markets a broad range of semiconductors and system solutions, and is in fact one of the largest semiconductor manufacturers in the world. The focus of its activities is on automotive electronics, industrial electronics, RF applications, mobile devices, and hardware-based security. Our next session partner, Bosch, is a leading supplier of technology and services in the areas of mobility solutions, industrial technology, consumer goods, and energy and building technology. Additionally, Bosch has in India the largest development center outside Germany for end-to-end engineering and technology solutions. Another thing of note is that Bosch set up its manufacturing operations in 1951 in India, which has grown over the years to include 18 manufacturing sites and 7 development and application centers. Next, moving on to the structure of the session, we will start off first with a brief context setting presentation and then have a panel discussion with few audience Q&A at the end. Other than that, we will also be running some polls during the session to keep the session interactive and invite you all to share your insights. So before we start this session, just wanted to share a small ground rule. I would request all the attendees to direct any questions that you may have to the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. I'm asking you to do that as it will help us refer to your questions in a focused manner. You can also choose to upvote these questions. This will help us in addressing the most burning topics. So please note once again, questions to be entered in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to today's presenter, Mr. Girish Kamala, who is Senior Director and Country Head Sales for Automotive at Infineon Technologies India Private Limited. Girish is someone who has over 25 years of global experience in the auto sector and currently heads the automotive sales, OEM business development, and application engineering teams located in Bangalore, Pune, and Delhi for Infineon. He has a special focus on local and global customers and also startups in the automotive semiconductor domain. We are honored to have him on board today. Over to you, Girish.
Thank you, Rohit. Thank you for the apt introduction. And good morning, my fellow speakers. And thank you all also for the audience for taking time today. I would like to share a very brief presentation, a very short overview of Infineon and a few technology trends that we see in the three segments, focus segments of powertrain, body electronics, IoT, and finally in terms of safety. So let me just share a very brief presentation, and then once we do that, we will get into the discussion. And Rohit will also introduce my fellow panelists today. So again, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for your time today. So as this is aptly named, new technology, new electronics technologies and trends in the two-wheeler segment. And this is a segment, that is really not largely focused. If you look at all the global players, it's mainly on the passenger vehicle segment. But in a country like India, where we have about 20+ million two-wheelers sold every year, and the rising need for more technologies, the rising middle class, which is also driving the need for more electronics in vehicles. This is a segment that we would like to discuss and debate on and get the views of the most knowledgeable people that we have in the industry today who are part of this panel. So I will keep this very brief so that we get more time to have a good discussion. So as Rohit mentioned, Infineon is a global semiconductor player. one of the top 10 players, close to 50,000 employees. And about 20% of these employees are in the R&D domain. So basically helping develop new technologies, new products for the market. And what we see, semiconductor parts are the basic building blocks of all electronics. So we are broken down into 4 segments, automotive being the largest. We also have focus in the industrial area, the appliances, the home appliances area, and also the most important factor that we are facing today with every one of us being connected is security. And we have the division called the Connected Secure Systems. With the recent acquisition of Cyprus Semiconductors, Infineon today is about closed last year at about 8.6 billion euros. And looking at further growth with the synergies and the introduction of us, with Cyprus as part of Infineon's portfolio. Globally, we are proud to say that we are number 1 in terms of automotive electronics or automotive semiconductors, and also in terms of power semiconductors. Largest group of people or the largest employees of Infineon are based in Asia Pacific. And as part to India, we actually have a global development center in India, housing over 1,500 employees, all working on new trends and technologies. Moving on, what is really driving, globally the need for electronics in various topics. For example, the mega trends like the demographic, social change, and urbanization have led to actually accentuating the need for electronics in our day-to-day applications, be it in terms of, for example, in the automotive space, be it in terms of simulating what you live in, taking your home or your living room into your car, because we spend a lot of time there. And specifically in terms of two-wheelers, with the advent of the need for regulations in terms of transitioning over from, say, the BS4 to BS6, as well as other technologies that we are seeing in today, for example, enhanced connectivity, electronic clusters, and just naming a few. There's a lot of these that are actually driving a lot of these changes, be it regulation, comfort, and finally, the need where the demand from the end customer is actually driving a lot of these. And this is resulting in semiconductor manufacturers as well as all the other manufacturers, in the supply chain to actually develop these new technologies and products. As Infineon, we cover a wide array of systems. For example, we talk about sense, compute, and actuate. All of these are, envisioned within a secure system, and all of these also driven centrally from a software ecosystem, which is very essential. And with our recent acquisition of Cyprus, which complemented the portfolio of Infineon, Infineon was mainly very strong in the power semiconductor domain. Now, with the various applications in terms of memory, as well as products for infotainment and connectivity, we can offer to the market and our customers a complete portfolio of solutions. Now, moving on to some of the trends that we see in India. I've kind of divided this into 3 segments. Firstly, we talk of powertrain. Yeah, if you look at powertrain, what do we see? With the need for regulation in India, especially moving from BS4 to BS6, what we saw was from CDI to EFI, ECARB. Now we are also seeing solutions where we have EFI and ECARB, or ECARB and also ISG complementing the whole solution. And what we talk about a lot, and which a lot of my learned fellow speakers will also address today, is on EV. This is a segment that has actually shown a lot of promise. We're still we could say, in an infancy, but something that would actually move on further. Now, what are these driven by? Yeah, mainly, like you can see, comfort and efficiency by customers. For example, that's driving technologies like, say, automatic transmission, DCT, ISG, or VVT in passenger vehicles. Some of these also slowly penetrating or percolating into the two-wheelers. And in terms of emission regulations, as well as the CAFE norms that the government is actually talking about. So if you could see, we see a transition, say, from a CDI to an EFI, ECARB, and EFI ISG combination to finally electric two-wheelers. And the segment of India, close to 20 million vehicles. Plus, the other advantage that we see in India that we probably don't see in the other markets is it's not controlled by hundreds of small players. We have 4 or 5 major players in the market, you know, contributing to the overall 20 million market. So essentially, they are all powerhouses, global powerhouses, working on new technologies. And we also have representatives from these organizations who will also talk about what they see are the trends in these areas. Now, going on to, this is the thing where with our recent acquisition of Cypress, we're able to offer a lot more into this domain. For example, one of the things is, IoT, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth connectivity. So this could result in, for example, smart helmets, navigation, emergency calling, and some applications like crash detection or smart alarm. This is something that would be very useful in an Indian market where, especially we have some of these track and trace devices. So smart alarms could be something as somebody is moving your vehicle, you're able to get an intimation on your mobile phone, or this could be connected to any of the security agencies that could help. All of us use mobile phones today, yeah? And then one of the things that we would all love to have where the batteries are getting discharged pretty soon is a good charging system in the vehicle, something that charges fast and reliable. So you're looking at, say, a USB-C or a 3.0 type chargers. Instrument clusters are getting fancy. The bike I owned as a college student, just had 2 dials and a small indicator, which would basically show you a few details, more basically applets showing you, various distinctions. But if you look at today, we're transitioning from a dot matrix to a small, medium to a large TFT, especially in the two-wheeler segment. As we start to get into the higher end bikes, as well as into the normal bikes, and especially with the electric two-wheelers coming in, we see instrument clusters with capacitive touch, more adaptable, giving you a more intuitive solution. And all of these now need something of a good diagnostic system with electrification to do, the battery SOC, the OTA, over-the-air updates, or for performance tracking. And with the advent of some of the regulations, say, coming in place in the future for TPMS, this need for these onboard diagnostics goes up. And as a result of which, it also leads to the increase in the amount of electronics that we see. Finally, the most important aspect of us driving a bike essentially is safety. We've already got regulations in for ABS, which led to the increase in the amount of electronics that you see in the bikes, and also the advent of the functional safety regulations in motorcycles. And this is also something that some of my speakers will also address in during our discussion. So some of the things that we're working with, radar-based rear collision warning systems. Then we're also working on AVAS with certain customers where we've gotten some queries on the acoustic, vehicle alert systems. And additionally, what we are also seeing is definitely in terms of, adaptable headlamps, which also are very essential because, as you're going on some of these roads, if there is a lot of bump in the roads, that also helps you call. Additionally, technologies, for example, some of the customers are even looking at, active dynamic damping controls and airbags. And what we will also discuss during our discussions, we go forward, is the advent of how these ECUs are also changing. We don't have space for multiple ECUs. How are they getting combined into one, maybe some kind of a domain controllers, which we will also discuss with my fellow speakers as we go in. So with this brief introduction and talking about the trends, I would like to now hand it over to Rohit. So Rohit, if you would go into introduction of my fellow.
So Girish, thanks for setting that up and the insightful presentation. Now to kick off the panel discussion, I would like to introduce our expert speaker group. Firstly, I would like to welcome Mr. Ram Bhavaraju, who is a senior engineering leader and currently heading software and web technologies at Ather Energy. At Ather, he leads software development efforts which work end-to-end from vehicle to customer. Additionally, Ram has varied experience in e-commerce, having been part of teams in Redbus, Simply Learn, and Paytm. Our second panelist for the day is Mr. Manohar M Halahali, who has over 17 years of professional experience. He has handled multiple responsibilities within the various automotive divisions of Bosch, and this has been across different roles spanning several technologies. Currently, he is heading the engineering organization of the two-wheeler division with the responsibility in the areas of engine management system, two-wheeler ABS, two-wheeler and three-wheeler electrification, and architecting connectivity solutions. Next, we have Mr. Aswin Kumar, who is Associate Director, Automotive and Transportation Practice at Frost & Sullivan. He has over 15 years of international research and strategy consulting experience, and his focus areas include automotive electronics, megatrends, and impact on mobility and electrification. He is someone who's widely quoted in national and international media, such as the New York Times, ET, Business Standard, Financial Times, to name a few. Next, please join me in welcoming Mr. Jayade Venkatraman, who is Head of Engineering Vehicle Dynamics at Continental in Bangalore. He joined Continental in 2007 and has been instrumental in building the R&D team, which currently handles Indian and Asian OEMs, providing active safety solutions such as anti-lock brake systems, electronic stability control, and other safety and comfort functions for four-wheelers as well as two-wheelers. Our next speaker for the session is Mr. Jagdish Bagre, who has been the head of two-wheeler design at Hero Electric for the last 5 years, and he overall has 25 years of experience in the auto sector. He has worked extensively on improving battery technology and making it suitable for the Indian market. This includes adapting the powertrain components to new demands of CAN communicated battery packs and IoT technology to support asset tracking and fleet management. Joining us all the way from Italy is our final panelist for the session, Mr. Giuseppe Luigi Rizzi, who has more than 2 decades of technical experience in the automotive sector. He joined Hero MotoCorp in 2019 and is heading the electrical and electronics department at its Center of Innovation and Technology. In the past, he has also worked with BMW, Yamaha Motor R&D Europe, and Marelli Motorsport. He has in fact participated in electronics development for top winning teams, including multiple Formula One, MotoGP, and Superbike championship teams. And lastly, we have Mr. Girish Kamala, who is Senior Director and Country Head of Automotive Sales at Infineon Technologies. Girish is someone who I've already introduced earlier, and given his deep expertise in the automotive sector, is a much sought after speaker. Therefore, we are incredibly honored to have him on board today as a moderator for the session. Over to you, Girish.
Thank you, Rohit, and the introduction of very eminent people. So it kind of puts me in place, saying where I really belong, and with such people with so much accomplishments. So one of the first questions I would like to open up. Maybe we start. We have people from the OEMs. We also have people from the tier ones and from the analysis segment, Ashwin. So the first question is to the OEMs. Is where do you see these technology trends with electronics heading? So Giuseppe, if I could address this to you first, and then we go with Jagdish and Ram. So where do you see these trends? And maybe you can talk also more from an Indian context.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the introduction. So as let's say Rohit was saying, in my career, I had the possibility to work in different scenarios with different companies, and especially I had the opportunity to work in a company that are, let's say, active in the four-wheeler market and also in the two-wheeler markets. So I was part of the discussion, let's say, what is the direction, what is the trend about technology that is worthy for two-wheelers, is it worthy also for two-wheeler? And let's say I would like to approach this question looking more at system level, at the ecosystem level. So here there are in this context colleagues coming from component development, coming from chip and semiconductor development, that, let's say, I think can set the context much better from the point of view. But looking to the system level, I would like to say that during my career, I have approached this kind of question and this kind of, let's say, direction, looking, going through the different and many change of paradigms. So at the very beginning, when I joined this automotive world, the paradigm was more oriented to think to a concentrated system, in which, let's say, function were more or less fixed, and this was, let's say, a limit of the technology, because at the end, this is driving to have a much more high hardware obsolescence. Then immediately after, we went through a change that was driving us to concentrate more on the distributed system. And again, in this system, we had some, let's say, advantage that were has been given by the flexibility of the system, by the possibility to have a scalable architecture, an architecture that can evolve with the time and can give some advantage over the life cycle of the vehicle. Again, going to this to the fact that was causing this change of paradigm. The fact is due to some enabling technologies. So over there, what let's say made it possible was the introduction of a communication line, synchronous automotive communication line, giving the possibility to have this distribution of a component over the vehicle, and allowing to have a large system working synchronized and let's say able to be compliant with the automotive standard in terms of reliability and safety. Going on with this, let's say I have seen that again, other enabling technology came in the game, and following this, let's say the introduction of this enabling technology, the paradigm is going to change again. It's going to change in the direction to reconcentrate the function of the vehicle in a, let's say, single, let's call supercomputer, in which let's say we can have a more software-based technology. In using this approach, we can enhance the flexibility. We can enhance the possibility to give more and more use cases during the life cycle of the vehicle, avoiding as much as possible the hardware obsolescence. Question is, how much this technology can be used, can be adapted at two-wheeler levels, supporting this technology from the four-wheeler to the two-wheeler. So this is a question to which I have to answer. It depends. Depends by many factors. Depends by the category of bikes that we are speaking. Depends by the market that we are addressing, and because one of the big problem of this porting of this technology from four-wheeler to two-wheeler is connected with affordability, and affordability in different market, in different segment, in different bike category is different. So I see, let's say, looking at looking at different market, I have different answer. For example, as I was saying in my introduction, working at BMW, I have seen in certain category of bike and in certain market was much easier to make this transfer of technology from four-wheeler to two-wheeler because over there target customer and so the expectation from the customer and the use case is expected by the customer was of a certain kind of use case. In other, in my current company, Hero Motocorp, we are now, let's say, addressing segments that are different, and due to the difference of this segment, different technologies, different kind of porting of technology have to be addressed. This is my view about this question.
Thank you, Giuseppe. I think it was very enlightening for us to understand, your views coming from, a premium four-wheeler passenger vehicle and two-wheeler manufacturer to your current stint at Hero Motors. Jagdishji, if you could actually add your perspective on what are you seeing, and maybe we can address in terms of, you know, uh, we have a lot of these new technologies which are being enabled into vehicles, but considering the very price-sensitive nature of the Indian market, how do you think these could get addressed here?
Good afternoon, all. I come from Hero Electric two wheelers, and the background here is we offer a very city speed vehicle, which is around 45 to 50 kilometers of two wheeler speed, and we cater to this segment. So, from this perspective, I would like to say what technologies we require and where we are heading towards now. See, today we have seen the two-wheeler market, which is growing very rapidly, and the use of the two-wheeler in a day by a person is limited, and the efficiency of the whole vehicle, when we look at it as a totality, and when we look at the emissions. So one of the ways to reduce and go green is to go electric. So the battery operated vehicles, so there are two challenges in terms of technology. One is going forward, we can have the IoT, which means the connectivity, smart connected vehicle. So how it will help in two ways. One of the way is it will increase the shared mobility. E-bike sharing will become the norm of the day, which everybody is thinking, which increases the utilization of asset. Number two, in delivery segment, when we talk of e-commerce delivery, then we think of a delivery solution, and when we talk of them is the range of the delivery and how quickly the battery can become swappable, because the cost of battery is the price sensitive subject. And being this, how we can utilize the battery to the fullest extent, and how we can give the customer a usage experience of electric mobility in terms of the advanced torque which electric mobility offers, and at a signal or the way, wherever it is waiting in congestion, it reduces the emission. So because there is no consumption, so I feel that the IoT is going to drive the e-mobility, whether it is connecting to the battery pack, which gives the smart mobility of the battery pack and asset tracking of the battery pack, and also to the connected scooter, where you can also estimate the drive ranges, the delivery times, and this can be a integrated input to the whole system. And then whether it is e-commerce system or e-bike sharing system. Coming to the second topic is the supply chain, which is being localized, and the drive for the battery packs and the powertrain like motor and controller are being localized. So here the entire engine component or the transmission component, which is doing now, they can contribute to this ecosystem, which I feel and which is relevant now in terms of making powertrains and in terms of making, I mean, battery packs. Now, given the scenario that the cell manufacturing is out of India, but definitely the BMS, there are ecosystem which is getting generated to make the BMS in India, number one. And number two is even the BMS software programming, which is the core strength of India, is being enhanced. So this is the way forward, I feel, in terms of how we can enhance the two-wheeler utilization in both the use cases.
Thank you, Jagdish.
Yeah.
Ram, if I can ask you in terms of, a lot of this, we're talking a lot of hardware, right? Now the software becomes a big part of this new technology. How do you see this changing the landscape that we have today, moving away from mini mechanical to electronics, and then the transition to differentiation between various aspects?
Great. Thank you so much, Suresh, and thanks for having me here. Uh, yeah, I mean, the playground for software had been set a long time back. It's just that the adoption into the two-wheeler segment is the biggest need of the hour. If you see, there are players like us who had been coming the software first way, and we were always keen on developing product features which you can relate to any other e-commerce companies, or probably can relate to something like a mobile phone manufacturer in that sense. So software plays very keen, or a very key important role in that sense. If you compare a four-wheeler segment, the kind of software improvements or enhancement they have had for the last 2 decades, starting from 2000, 2021, there had been lots of improvement. The majority of the playground went. If I have to put into 2 decades of what had happened, majority of their improvements came around the software, because the playground or the play area is much more vast in that sense. And in a two-wheeler segment where the amount of innovations, or the amount of the play area in that sense is quite limited, and the kind of resources are also very limited to start with. But I see a growing trend and changes in that one, where it could be a connected vehicle, it could be giving stats, or if you even if you go to a ride sharing kind of a market, right? Lots of these ride sharing mobility players are coming up with lots of software based insights, very good clean product features to know about the vehicle, know about your driving statistics, know about the road conditions in that sense, or probably help you out in a point A to point B commute, giving you upfront idea about, okay, how is the traffic conditions to be, or giving you things like schedule maintenance, giving a maintenance warning, that kind of thing. So if you see, there are an amount of opportunities in terms of software, and that is the key differentiator. If overall, the amount of, as you were rightly pointing out during your presentation about the ECUs, or probably the electronics, and at some point in time electronics are coming to a maximum innovation, because innovation happened for a longer amount of time. Now it's open for everyone to come and think in terms of what could be done, or what are the product features to be developed in terms of software. And that's exactly what I see happening in the market, and that's probably the main differentiator.
Thank you, Ram. Rohit, with this, could we go to our first poll? I think it's kind of related to what Ram talked about. If you could please post the first question on the poll, please. Yeah. So everybody, the first question is, will vehicle connected clusters and telematics significantly change the riding quality experience of the commuter? So if you could please answer, we give a few about 30 seconds for you to answer, please. So
Nidish, yeah, maybe in the meantime you can move on. People
yeah,
can just
so
keep
in the
answering.
meantime, I move on. So the next question is, we talked about software, so maybe more related to it. Yeah, say Manohar, if I could address this to you, we see the advancement in IoT would not only make the commuter's journey seamless, but improve the product and production of two-wheeler companies. We know that with the recent COVID times, the journey of IoT has not been at the same pace as what we all expected. If you could say what has been this impact of COVID and technology and IoT advancements, and what do you see as these IoT applications they are coming into a two-wheeler space?
Thanks, Girish, for that question, and thank you for having me on this panel. Look, if you see different domains on a two-wheeler, we talk about classic propulsion, we talk about safety, and then the next set of things which are emerging right now are comfort and connectivity. And comfort and connectivity also leads to the aspect that new technologies like the IoT interfacing and similar technologies are playing a vital role. So when I say comfort and connectivity, there is a shade of overlap with safety as well. So let me take you back to what is happening in Europe. So in Europe, e-call was mandated from 2020 for four-wheelers. There is discussion of doing something similar on two-wheelers. It is a classic IoT solution to really enhance safety of two-wheeler riders. So in most of the cases, time is an essential factor between an incident happening to when the rider gets attention in terms of medical attention and emergency services. So a very true application of IoT is seen where you have features on your bike, or you have sensors which have inbuilt algorithms to detect a crash or a fall and automatically intimate the emergency services, the nearest hospital, and so on and so forth. So this provides a crucial window for the services to give the right medical attention to the motorcyclist. So this is something that we are already seeing happen in advanced countries, and it's a matter of time because India is already gaining a lot of users on the connected space. You have now motorcycles coming with digital clusters and telematics units, which was not the case prior. So the building blocks are already there, where you can harness these individual technologies which are already available on the bike. You have now sensors which can measure the inertia of the bike. You have ABS system which can detect the position of the bike. You have a cluster which is Bluetooth connected to your phone. So the pieces are all there. You need to put the whole thing together to say, how can you make a meaningful solution out of it? And it's a matter of time that technologies like emergency call, breakdown call, the IoT solutions which we talk about, which will really make an impact to the rider. So these are things which Bosch also is working on. We are trying to put the pieces together and see how do you make meaningful solutions of the technology that is already available. In the previous panelists already mentioned, India is a cost-sensitive market, and you simply cannot keep adding more and more electronics, more and more controllers on board. So the idea is to make use of the existing hardware that is already available, devise smart solutions around it, and give the value that the customer would appreciate. So this is something that Bosch is working on, and I believe this is a matter of time that such IoT technologies would definitely come in also to the Indian market, the commuter market at large.
Thank you, Manohar. Now we talked about powertrain, we talked about IoT connectivity, the body electronics, and very importantly, I think for all riders on the road is the safety aspects of a bike. And none other than Jayade, who's been associated with this for a long time since I've known him from my Continental days. Jayade, where do you see these trends and technologies with the safety in bikes? Where do you see this going? And how can a lot of these technologies that you guys are working on globally be adaptable to the Indian market?
Okay, thanks, Girish, for the question. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah. The first part is on the safety itself. Yeah. I think the perception is only growing. The safety perception in India is growing with the government legislating ABS and a lot of safety features that is seen in the four-wheelers. The two-wheeler riders are also equally educated, and the perception is growing and the uptake is happening. And if you are a rider in an Indian scenario with millions of vehicles added every year, the road conditions that we have, it's clear that if we come up with a safety solution for an adaptive headlight, people riding in the night already know if I have an adaptive headlight, how much convenience it is and safety for me, or a warning for me if I'm going to have a rear end collision, or some kind of warning if there is a blind spot detection, or when I want to change a lane. I think this safety function requirements is there in our market and is also important in our market, considering the number of vehicles and the injuries and the fatalities that happen. So a lot of these solutions are needed in our market. And once the perception of the people is slowly changing, I think these things will immediately catch up demand as well. On the other side, the technology is also available. I mean, from the big brother four-wheeler, there is so much technology and evolution that's happening with the radars, cameras, the ECU, the software-defined architectures. I think these solutions are also available. And it's just a time that this demand and these solutions will find a perfect match. And maybe in that sense, the affordability can also be given. So the scale up of safety solution, which is actually a requirement in our market, and coming with the solutions we already have, I think will have to be made affordable, and that point also will come. And companies like Continental, having a safety heritage for the last 100 years, 130 years or so, we have developed several solutions across the market, which is well adapted to the market requirements. For example, in the case of ABS, we also introduced a one-channel ABS so that it's cost-effective, but does the work of safety effectively as well. So like this, it's also throwing up a lot of opportunities because the functions are there, and we are the biggest market. We also owe it to the people to give a good safety technology to the people. So I think several work is going on, and we are constantly making in the market for the market solutions, making it as cheap as and affordable as possible. And technology is affordable, and if it meets the right demand and criteria, I think it will be a good, finally a good product, and finally a good value add for the customer and society as well. So this is how we see, and we are working. And we as, we owe it to the Indian market because this is the biggest two-wheeler market, and we are working constantly on bringing some of the safety technologies I mentioned.
Thank you, Jaydev. And Ashwin, you encompass all of us. Yeah, each of us are focused on a specific segment, but you have been working with the two-wheeler manufacturers, the tier one, supporting them, and also, the semiconductor manufacturers. What do you see as, your perspective in terms of where we are headed? Because India, as all the speakers talked about, is a very cost-conscious market. And what are all the possible options that actually drive for increased electronification in the two-wheeler segment? Because this is also a segment which is not a big focus for a lot of the big players. So where do you see this from your perspective? You've been following a lot of these segments, yeah?
Thanks, Girish, for that. With respect to the electronics content in two-wheeler itself, we believe that we are in the middle of a major transformation. Let me put this in perspective for you, and also make a very clear distinction. We have internal combustion engine based two-wheelers, and we have electric two-wheelers. With respect to electric two-wheelers, just like Mr. Ram mentioned, we already have vehicles that have more than 50 sensors on board. It needs to be connected because it needs to be constantly measuring things like voltage, current, where the vehicle is, where the nearest charging station is, and things like that. Now, I like to focus on the biggest elephant in the room, which is the internal combustion engine based market, which is the single largest opportunity for OEMs in India. Within that, in India, like a lot of speakers mentioned, India is the world's largest two-wheeler market and continues to be so. 2 years back, we still did more than 20 million units. Let's see how the market is structured and where we think there is an opportunity for excellent or higher concentration of electronics. So about 65% of the market is focused on under 110 cc, where we see, very cost conscious, focus more on reliability, fuel economy, and things like that. And we also see a major thrust towards above 150 cc vehicles. 150, this is like the fastest growing segment, one. Two, this is also a segment where we see a rapid adoption of electronics content. This 150 cc and above and 250 150 to and above segment will have a volumes about 3 million units, right? 3 million units, and it's been growing at about 30% in the last 5 years in terms of CAGR. Now let's come back and put what kind of electronics requirement for what segment is applicable for the Indian market, right? So with respect to development in electronics itself, you can look at it from a program area standpoint. You can look at it from body electronics. There is powertrain. There is safety and security. There is infotainment and connectivity. And then, of course, transmission. Depending on the segment that we are dealing with, we expect electronics content to increase as we go up the value chain from 110cc all the way to 250. We expect more and more of these program areas to have electronics content. Let me put this in perspective. Today, the 150cc vehicles have semi-digital and digital instrument clusters, and they are also slowly bringing in some sort of mobile connectivity in it. It is connected to your phone through a proprietary interface. It gives you turn-by-turn navigation. Some of them from the electric vehicle standpoint is connected to the cloud like the Ather ones. And as you move up the value chain, move towards 200 and 250cc in the next 5 years time, with the advent of penetration of 4G and even the changes that we expect from the penetration of 5G in vehicles, we expect more areas to become electronified. Let's say, for example, safety, active. Some of the speakers mentioned about active safety, which is from advanced driver assistance systems. It may look very, very far-fetched, but I expect excellent penetration of advanced safety features coming in at 250cc and above segments. Whereas the segments below it, you will have more touch screens, speech recognition systems getting in, because that looks like a very natural way of interacting with your vehicle, because your driver distraction is a major cause of concern. So, from our perspective, electronics content is going to increase in vehicles. We expect at least 30% of the price of the vehicle coming from electronics content in 2030, even in the Indian market. But for suppliers, they need to know what segment they're addressing with what products, because aspiration, needs, willingness to pay, and ability of OEMs to electronify that particular segment will completely depend on the wherewithal of the customers going into that segment.
Thank you, Ashwin. I think it's very critical what you talked about, affordability and the increase in electronics content. Actually, when you said that word of increase in electronic content, it actually put a smile on my face, which means more moolah, more money, and which we basically can help others. So with this, Rohit, can we have the next poll, please?
Girish, can we share the results for the previous one first?
Sorry about that. Yeah, if you could please go ahead and share. So what we see, yes, and it's basically an overwhelming yes, about the connected clusters and telematics significantly changing the ride quality experience of the commuter. Thank you, guys. I think a lot of us on the panel also agree with this statement. Yeah, Rohit, if you could please, go ahead and share the next poll. So in the meantime, when you're all answering this poll, there have been quite a few questions that have actually gotten posted in the Q&A. We have the right speakers here. So I would like to go ahead and address one of the questions, this is from Robin Joseph. It says, how do you see the synergy for engineering plastics in two-wheeler segment with increased electronic components, which go hand in hand with audio electronics for their fire retardant properties, and specifically thermal conductive plastics for thermal management? So anybody on the panel, would you like to take this question? Okay, there's other questions which I will also then go on to is, what do you all see if we are going to see ADAS system getting implemented in two-wheelers? Sorry, Rohit.
So Girish, maybe Manohar can shed light on this. The advance. So the question is, from Akhilesh Jain. He says that since we are touching upon motorcycle safety technology, so what are your thoughts on advanced rider assistance system in two-wheelers, similar to ADAS in four-wheelers? And for examples, he's given forward collision warning, blind spot selection. So maybe you can shed light on that.
Sure. I mean, it's a relevant question and also an apt one for discussion today. If you look at the overall safety on a two-wheeler, and if I can categorize it into three buckets, we talk about as Bosch a three-step safety concept. The first one is classic safety, making sure that the bike is safe in all the braking and accelerating conditions. So here you have the combined braking system, the ABS, and motorcycle stability control all coming in. The second one is to predict, to see when can the bike become more unstable and cause harm to the rider. And here is where the prediction comes in with respect to blind spot detection, forward collision warning, and also the adaptive cruise control topics. These are classic packages of advanced rider assistance systems, where a host of technologies, radar-based technologies, ultrasonic sensors, all these are used. And these are things which are already in the market. So if the question was in the direction of whether ARAS will come with respect to the market, the answer is it is already there. Albeit in a niche segment, in high-end models of KTM and Ducatis perhaps, but it's already there and it's working well. And the only way forward I see, and I strongly believe, is that the more this technology becomes affordable and we can work on it in order to optimize the whole solution, it's a matter of time that it will trickle down to the commuter segment and also the premium segment, which Ashwin was just talking about, the 150cc, 250cc and above, is the right segment where it could start proliferating in the Indian context. And the third one, the third step, which I should not forget, is to connect the bike to the environment. So I spoke about the IoT solutions, where you ensure that even if an incident happens, the rider is then given enough attention, enough medical care in the short window period of time, which is quite crucial. So if you look at the overall configuration of a three-step safety, ARAS is one portion of it, and which is already coming. The basics are already there. The Indian market is already having ABS, CBS as a standard fitment on the motorcycles and scooters today. And the next thing, as we spoke about the IoT topics, would come in a matter of time. So the safety portion, including the ARAS, is a reality that is already coming. And I would see that the Indian market could test these technologies in the 150cc, 250cc segment. And then based on the success, and once you get volumes there, the affordability would definitely increase. So this is how we see technology going forward. And this is something that is also very close to how ADAS is then deployed on a bike, and then ARAS comes into play.
Sure.
Thank you, Manohar.
Maybe
Rohit,
maybe Jaydev can add to that as well, given that he's safety is close to his heart as well.
Yes, I think Manohar comprehensively covered it, the steps of safety. But as we are working on solutions. I mean, only thing that I would like to say is ARAS is already there, and we as an engineering community working closely in India, we are monitoring the situation. We know that we have to bring an affordable solution into the market, and as an engineering community, we owe it to the market here as well, and to the commuters here as well. So the challenge now is to bring it in an affordable way, and also to package it in a right way from the four-wheeler to the two-wheeler, given the space constraints and where to position the radar, camera, what's the best way. In the segments that he talked about, the premium segments within India, and also maybe a commuter segment, we see several use cases there. Yeah? Also, a lot of women drivers maybe are benefited by a blind spot detection. A lot of takers on the scooters. So we see a lot of market opportunity and segments which will really benefit from these features. And we as an engineering community are working to bring those solutions, adapt it to the Indian market, and make it affordable. And this is something of a mission we have also taken up on ourselves as well to do this. So just want to add it.
Great.
And can I share my view?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so about this specific point, I would like to share my view because I have been active part in my previous experience, especially in Europe, about this process. The active riding system, also the passive riding system, was, let's say, a process that has started many years ago. I have personally participated to many European projects regarding this topic. European project having the target to put together OEM company and also supplier company in order and create a kind of let's say backbone to be able to introduce these technologies in the bike that are very important and to which for example my company is very strongly committed. Safety is one of the most important things on which we are working on. As previously mentioned, one of the topic is how, let's say, implement these technologies on the bikes. Bikes, as I've already told, four-wheeler and two-wheelers have, say, are basically different, and porting of technology is not transparent. So needs some technology change and some technology optimization in order to make the technology available at that level. The other point is, let's say, a kind of a sensibilization of the customer to this kind of technology, because, okay, as Mr. Manohar was saying, let's say, increasing the number, also the affordability will increase. But I want also to highlight that is also a matter of technology. When I was participating to this project more than 10 years ago, technology available were very less, and impact of that technology on the cost of the bike was very huge. Now, going on, I see that more enabling technology are coming in the game, and are coming in the game even in the future, especially connected technology like 5G are allowing use cases that will drive this ARS system to be every day much more safe, much more affordable, and so I see in this direction a lot of possibility in the future to deploy this feature in the market. This is what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Sure. Mr. Bagre, would you like to address battery safety? I mean, that's something that, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, battery safety. I just want to share this topic because it is very important for two-wheeler in electric and other electric vehicles. One of the thing is battery local supply source, which is currently enhancing its process, which is for the consistency in joining process, the consistency in cell grading process, and consistency also in entire battery pack development, which also the government norms are getting enhanced in terms of safety, that the battery pack has to go through the entire fire chamber and then sustain that there is no explosion. So the safety norms this year has made a lot of changes and leap changes in terms of battery safety. Now here the question is, what we need is a very good BMS development, which is to be done to adapt to Indian environment, so Indian temperature conditions, and then backend the IoT support, which will do all the computational work and predictive work, and also make a customer friendly, more meaningful data even to the customer, even to the central user, and even to the I mean the supply chain, which is working on those advanced technology in terms of IoT. So that was my where I want to focus, and all the Indian industry should also focus on these areas. That's what is my viewpoint.
Hey, Rohit, with this, maybe we can show the results of the polls that we had. Yeah. So I think this kind of hits the nail in the head. Yeah, talking about what we consider, Indian customer is very value conscious, but they also, Indian customers do not care about features. You say that, which is not true. Yes, they do care about features, but the features have to really have value. Yeah, go ahead for the next one. Next poll, Rohit, if you don't mind. So in the meantime, one of the technologies that we are seeing, going back to IC, is the ISG. The ISG making inroads into two-wheelers. So maybe I address this to Manohar. Do you see ISG is mainly in scooters? Do you see this also coming into passenger way, into motorcycles going forward?
So ISG is, I would say, a comfort technology which is picked up quite well, and scooters being the area where people look for comfort, the acceptability of ISG has come in quite well. Combined now with the engine management system, it offers also an opportunity to reduce your CO2 footprint by including probably a start-stop in addition to just the ISG portion. So this is a technology which is an organic technology in nature and has grown well. It had some limitations with respect to what could be achieved on a motorcycle environment, which has been resolved now. And it's a natural course that ISG will also start making inroads into the motorcycle segment. And we would very soon see some of the applications picking up ISG as, let's say, a premium offering. And it could be in certain variants of motorcycles, and based on how the market accepts this technology for a motorcycle, it would definitely also increase its installation rate in motorcycles as well. So there were some technical challenges in the beginning of introduction of ISG quite some years ago, where it could not have been directly implemented on a motorcycle, but now these have been resolved, and I think it's a matter of time that ISG will start coming on motorcycles as well. And it gives an opportunity to the OEMs to start working on additional features. You just mentioned that if you are giving a feature combined with the ISG, which is a start-stop, which can give fuel economy improvement, reduce the CO2 footprint, the customers will definitely see value in that, and then the affordability factor doesn't play a big role. So yes, it's an interesting technology, and I believe that it will also start coming in motorcycles quite soon.
Can we maybe obtain an OEM perspective on ISG? That it's mainly in scooters at the moment. Do you see it coming up in motorcycles greater than 125cc as well? And what would be the challenges in any of the OEMs?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, say I am in line with what Mr. Manohar was saying about ISG. I think it's an interesting technology, and I think is important, let's say, as a use case for the customer, even at motorcycle level. What let's say the big impact here is to be evaluated is again about the affordability of this technology. From a scooter point of view, of course, the feature is already well introduced and is very, very much appreciated. On the motorcycle, I see this feature, especially looking to the market with, let's say, with my international eyes, a little bit at the beginning of the introduction, but definitely benefit are there. Advantage to the customer are there, comfort in the driving are there. Is let's say only matter to say make it from cost slash benefit point of view say appreciable to the customer. This is my point of view.
If Rohit, if I may add my perspective on this,
sure.
Very quickly. If I remember correctly, TVS Motors actually introduced ISG in its moped range, which is like the bottom of the in terms of pricing. It was introduced in TVS Excel. Super. And it was initially done it was introduced in 2 states, UP and Delhi. And then we'd spoken to a lot of customers using that technology. They loved it. It was very, very quick, efficient. It didn't have any sound, or they really liked the use the technology. If that technology can be introduced in mopeds, I see no reason why this technology cannot be ubiquitous, across the board in the Indian market.
Yeah, I just want to tell, in four-wheeler market, it has been quite successful in terms of value chain. So definitely two-wheeler also will have the same appreciation. That's what I feel in terms of CO2 reduction and also better fuel economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jagdish. Rohit, can we have the polls, the results of the last poll, please? So let's see what, yeah, looks like, we have questions are overwhelmingly, on the side where we all thought it would head. So, the answer here is, should government make various safety-oriented features as mandatory across the category of two-wheelers? Yes, and the answer is 89% yes. So Jayade asked, coming to you on this specific question, what are other, we know about ABS, we know, ESC in cars. What are other features that you think would make more sense for the two-wheelers that would actually come in?
I think I spoke about it, but okay, let me just start with, you saw the ABS in the classic safety package. As they said, ABS is there. Today, for example, we have now ride modes for ABS in the bikes. You can switch on the ABS performance differently in a rain mode, or in a race mode, or in a race track, or in a normal urban driving. So you can vary that. That is available today. We are talking about traction control systems for motorbikes. Motorbike stop and go in a hilly surface, that the motorcycle is not going down when you brake and start off. We're talking about optimized curve braking, ABS in curves when you brake, and so the kind of safety technology is increasing. And if we are going to introduce a little more sensorics into the bike, maybe a inertial measurement unit which can measure all the degrees of freedom of the rider or the bike, all the 6 degrees, then we can start controlling the ABS. We can get a little more predictive on the safety. We can use that for headlamp control while you're on a curve. So a lot of those technologies in safety, which is possible to also immediately bring in and test it in the market. And if the affordability is there, we can also introduce quickly into the market. So that is happening. And we spoke again about the ARAS systems. I think I don't want to repeat it again, but all the ARAS systems that you see that will help us in blind spot, emergency brake assist, and maybe giving traffic sign assist, adaptive cruise control even, yeah, all these are also possible today. It's been proven in the market, and it's just a matter of time we bring the solution affordable and needs one step of engineering from us. I don't think the Western world is going to engineer these solutions. The market has to answer its own question. That's why I said it's also our mission to bring these safety in an affordable and the functionality we need on the Indian road. So that bit of engineering is upon us to bring that. And then, of course, the economies of scale and volume should play that it is affordable and wider reach into the market. So that's there. And once the devices are connected, and that is going to happen because as we already spoke, electronics will keep growing, and it will come to a point where more differentiation not possible with only electronics. Then vehicles will become software driven architecture, maybe 5 to 8 years from now, once the four-wheelers are there. And at that time, just like a vehicle is just a IoT device, a smart IoT device, maybe bikes will also become smart IoT. And then the possibilities open up further, yeah? With vehicle to vehicle connectivity, vehicle to infrastructure. Maybe you cross the toll road, no more toll booths, no more things. It's things like that which can start with, but endless possibility once the device, once the bike starts to get connected, and then safety, connectivity, everything starts to overlap. You can just keep imagining what all things are possible in this. Yeah. So all that we have discussed, the main theme of this is electronics, software in the bikes. The possibilities are endless. bringing it in an affordable way to our customers and the right functions for the Indian road conditions and the Indian demographics. I think these are the challenge. And as I said, engineering plays a key role here. The local engineering plays a key role in adapting these solutions and bringing it correctly into the market. And we also owe it because we are the biggest market and we have to drive this as well. Getting into the next decade, we feel we have to drive the two-wheeler market and the technology as well.
Thank you, Jaydev.
Yes.
Now, Ram, a question I would
Okay,
like
Girish.
to address to you. Yeah, in terms of, we talked about safety.
Correct.
We talked about IoT, connected bikes, connected to everything. What is Ather doing about securing all this information transfer that's happening with all of these, with this connectivity that we're planning to do? And a lot of your development happens locally. So how are you guys addressing this in terms of, say, cybersecurity for vehicles?
Um, Yeah, I mean, as I was talking, setting a context about who we are to start with. We have been a cloud native company in that sense. So you can actually compare us with any other e-commerce startup or probably any fintech company in every which way it matters. Security had been the primary reason for us to be ensuring our products come in a certain way, and all of them have been certified. So whatever there are security now, whatever there are certifications around, for example, Bluetooth connectivity certification, or probably certifications in terms of signal connectivity terms, all those certifications we keep doing with our bikes. Not only that, especially in terms of software, in terms of cloud native things, we use things like the hardware secured modules. We use end-to-end security. We work with the best in the market, that like the Google Cloud Platform, AWS, in that sense, who are our cloud partners also, to implement many of these technologies. We have an end-to-end encryption in that sense. The way we transfer the data is very, very unique to each of these vehicles, so that no one can either decipher or probably read into the data. Apart from that, the owner of the vehicle or the vehicle itself. That way, we have had adapted multiple different approaches, and we have worked the best in the class. And we have this as a cadence setup to have a regular security testing done. We do lots of penetration testing in that sense, lots of security testing, perimeter testing, and also connectivity testing. These are four major testings which happen for every major release on our vehicle. And this keeps updating with the certifications available, with the amount of the changes in the cyber security framework also, right? We keep updating them so that we are on par with, or probably at least close to where it is in terms of any other e-commerce company or a fintech company in that sense. So we do take security quite a bit, and it's part of our products. It's not an afterthought at all. I mean, we even though we are an OEM, we are more of a software first company in that sense.
Thank you, Ram. Ashwin, you've talked to all the manufacturers. Yeah, you talk to everybody. Now, we see India, a lot of software development is happening. What is your take in terms of the hardware design when you talk to a lot of your customers, of how is this translating into the design of hardware from more software-oriented approach?
One of the most important things that we realized is, Indians can do software, but there's always a bit of a challenge when it comes to hardware. Speak to Ram, they'll tell you the kind of challenges that they've seen in terms of manpower, in terms of designing anything ground up with software and hardware to go with it. And that's been one of the challenges. Even today, from our recruitment standpoint, from the training standpoint, from the R&D standpoint, Indian OEMs are still thinking, automotive or cars or two-wheelers, in terms of a mechanical machine. That's no longer going to be the case. Everything around in this extended ecosystem need to be software oriented. By 2030, I mean, even today, there's more than like 10 million lines of code in an S class. With more safety content coming in, infotainment, connected vehicles coming in, IoTs coming in, you are going to have more and more codes written into original ground up developed hardware. So this is something that OEMs do not have expertise in, and this is where perspective or the capability of suppliers would come in, and this is where suppliers, the global suppliers likes of Bosch, Continental will have an upper hand because they bring in, marry both of these two things together. But the success of their offerings in the Indian market would completely depend on whether they are going to be bringing a product that is applicable for, let's say, a European market directly into India, or develop something very unique to India. Give you a perspective. For cars, there's ACC, stop and go, there is blind spot detection, there is lane departure warning, there are several other systems. But when we actually spoke to customers about what they'd like to pay for, it's a simple camera based 360-degree perspective that gives them a complete 360-degree perspective of a car and surroundings, to avoid fender bender accidents. This is something that they're willing to pay for. So even from a motorcycle or scooter standpoint, we need to understand what customers will pay for, and then probably take those, develop a solution around it, and then take it to the OEMs. And make no mistake, it's not going to be easy for OEMs to, come and, put that hardware in and develop that ground up and build a software around it. Tomorrow it's going to take years of expertise again.
Thank you, Ashwin. One of the topics that a lot of participants are asking, addressing LED lighting. Jagdish, I would like to address this topic to you. How do you see the LED lighting penetration into the two-wheelers going forward? We've seen a few applications, yes, but a lot of them still falling back to the conventional lighting. Where do you see this trend going?
Yeah, going forward, I will take two aspects. One aspect is the electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, yes, they need to be energy conservative. So going on a LED lighting will reduce the energy consumption from the battery pack. This is the positive sign. And way forward, all the future will be LED in terms of that. And secondly, on the safety perspective and the overall visibility perspective, LED is going to take us far ahead than the conventional lighting system. If you look the modern two-wheelers where the visibility range is much higher than the current filament-based lamps or halogen-based lamps. So we see a way future in terms of energy conservation both in, and as we go forward, as it happened in the regular lighting system, the cost is also going to come down very drastically when we look at the application and when it comes to mass usage and affordability. Thank you all.
Thank you. Manohar, one topic which I would like to address to you, with the integration or with putting so much electronics into vehicles, so many functions into vehicles, the number of ECUs in the vehicles are increasing. Where do you see the trend going? Because especially in two-wheelers, there's also going to be a constraint on space. So where do you see this trends going, where a lot, and where Bosch is actually working in addressing these topics?
I mean, it's an interesting question because what we see now on a two-wheeler has been an organic growth with respect to electronics coming on board. So we started with the CDIs, then you have some kind of body controllers coming in, the blinker controllers, engine management, ABS, clusters. So this has been a gradual journey of adding electronics as and when it comes, either as a legislation or as a need. So this has been how the content of electronics in a two-wheeler is increasing. So it's not a preset plan which everybody worked on of a vehicle of a future and then started putting in these electronics. It was more gradual and organic. Now that we have reached a state where you see these controllers on board and which are already connected, by the way, the CAN communication is going and these devices are talking to each other, it gives now a very unique opportunity to look at this in a holistic way and see where the E&E architecture could actually be optimized. And this is an area which Bosch is also focusing on, where you could really then rationalize the amount of controllers that are needed on board, thereby addressing the challenge of space, which you mentioned, addressing the challenge of the cost of the controllers, and not to forget the ecosystem. Every controller, if you have a connector, a wiring harness, it has to be sealed. The two-wheeler itself is exposed to the environment. So it comes with a lot of challenges. So going forward, E&D architecture optimization would be an area which Bosch is already working on. We are in fact also leading some discussions with the four-wheeler OEMs and the two-wheeler guys as well. And we see it's a good space now to be in, where you can actually think of it in a more holistic way, plan for what kind of features and technologies that you want to have for the future, and then accordingly look at how to rationalize the whole system. So whether be it a central computing unit which can take care of multiple elements, and then you can just have slaves everywhere taking care of only the execution while the computing happens in one space. What kind of redundancies you want to build, what kind of safety redundancies that come into play. So these are aspects that Bosch is working into, and it's a extremely interesting space, because the end user would benefit from this. While you continue to optimize this, you will see that the cost of computing and electronics on the vehicle will go down, which means increasing the acceptability in the market. So this is something which is really, really interesting and is going to drive the next phase of electronics on two-wheelers itself.
Thank you, Manohar. Any of the other panelists have any views on this about, having one ECU to drive the whole vehicle, all functionalities? How do you actually integrate safety, functional safety? How do you have redundancies into built-in? Giuseppe, if I can request your views on this.
Yes, as I've already mentioned at the beginning, this is the direction. This is the direction, especially at the four-wheeler, in the four-wheeler world. I see is becoming also direction in the two-wheeler world, and I can understand completely why. As Mr. Manohar was saying, there are a lot of advantages, and especially I see a lot of advantages in the, let's say, thinking to the vehicle not as a standalone, but in the ecosystem that we are building around as a part of IoT structure. Looking at the vehicle in this in this bigger system, is clear that let's say we can say that more service and affordability require better integration. So in this in the current market and in the future world, there are a lot of new services more than pure infotainment, starting from the share and multimodal mobility, going to the autonomous driving, that are changing drastically the scenario. And to be affordable requires better integration of system and subsystem level. Here we have to think at the system as in a much wider way than in the past. And the sensor belong not only to the onboard environment, but also to the wider outboard environment. So in this kind of big scenario, of course, this approach to have a centralized, let's say, powerful supercomputer in the vehicle is the direction, in my opinion.
Girish, I can only add here is from what the other panelists spoke. Maybe for the two-wheeler, it's the biggest opportunity that we did not do it organically. And when we talk about architecture and networks, we probably have a chance as a two-wheeler to leapfrog, yeah? And not go into those steps like four-wheeler and then move from a distributed ECU to a domain controller, then finally to a server architecture. Maybe two-wheelers can leapfrog. So this is my view. Maybe there is a good opportunity to leapfrog and go directly into the advanced technologies. Yeah. So there could be a possibility, Girish.
Thank you, Jayade. One of the things that we are seeing, it's some of working very differently in India compared to some of the other countries. We started with IC engines, transition over to hybrid, and then finally into electric. I just want to get everyone's view on, do you see a need or an application of hybrid two-wheelers coming into the market? Because we're moving directly from IC to battery operated or electric vehicles. So Jaydev, maybe we could start with you and see, is there going to be a need for any kind of a hybrid two-wheeler?
Girish, maybe not really from the domain, but I can only say maybe a direct leapfrog to EV is better than the two-wheeler. Hybrid, probably whatever we try to do may not be the cost-effective solution. Hybrid is a little expensive solution to maintain two drive lines, even in a vehicle. So maybe for a two-wheeler, I think better to leapfrog. Yeah. So that would be my opinion on this topic. Yes.
Jagdish, what do you see here, from a Hero Electric perspective?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Yeah, we are now leapfrogging directly from an IC engine to an EV.
Yes.
But if you look at it in the rest of the world, right, the transition from an IC into a hybrid and then finally into an EV. We kind of leapfrog the step of hybrids. Do you think anything that where anybody is looking at focusing on any kind of hybrids for two-wheelers?
Hybrids, yes, but the more leapfrog would come because of the price sensitive market in India. So as we add up technologies in IC engine, we would come up with more price, and it may be also very suitable for high speed two wheelers where we need those technology when we are talking. But when we talk of electric two wheelers in city application, the speeds are already limited, and in those limited speeds, going directly to the electric would be a benefit to the consumer. So the total cost of ownership of two-wheelers, one has to weigh this, and all people in the two-wheeler industry, if they weigh out these in a proper way, the answers will be self-realizing to go for a hybrid or to go for a electric. I mean, thank you.
Thank you, Jagdish. Any other perspective from my panelists, of the need of a hybrid system? Yeah, maybe Ashwin, you probably scan the market enough. What is your perspective on this?
Again, whether we need it or not can be answered in terms of where the government regulation is going in terms of emission norms. It is a very, very distinct possibility given the fact that the Japanese OEMs who dominate the two-wheeler market globally are also very, very, they've been pushing for hybrid all over the world. Even in India, you may have seen the likes of Maruti or Toyota, the rest. So in the future, if there is going to be a technology agnostic emission norms where you have to meet a certain emission norm, some sort of electrification and hybridization would be required. This is something that we're seeing in the passenger vehicle industry very heavily. And this given the fact that these guys have a 20-25 million manufacturing capacity, if it becomes electric overnight, what are they going to do with all these the supply chains and years of expertise putting into developing all of these suppliers and expertise? So hybrid would make sense, but it will completely depend on the OEM's inclination and the kind of direction that your emission regulation and compliance would go into.
Thank you, Ashwin. Just been reminded by Rohit that we're almost out of time. So I would basically do is, have a brief summary of the discussion. I think definitely an hour and a half or hour and 15 minutes that we got to talk about this topic of electronics and technology trends in two-wheelers is probably not enough. We definitely could do it. Just to summarize, I think definitely what we're seeing is the electronics content in two-wheelers is going to go up with the advent of technologies in terms of for comfort, maybe even in terms of regulations, and finally to improve the efficiency and enhance the vehicles and the performance of these vehicles. We would need for a lot of electronics. We talked about going into a single ECU, which would probably make a lot of sense. The various safety adaptations, the safety features that are going to be added into these two-wheelers, cybersecurity with connected, more electronics in terms of connectivity, digital clusters. Maybe going forward, we also talked about charging in your vehicles, vehicles getting smarter, smart bikes, and definitely a lot of these features need to go in because of also the ride sharing that's also becoming, something more prevalent in the Indian market. So with this, what I would like to request each of you, if you could summarize in one line what you think are the technology trends and the electronics usage in each vehicle. So I start with you, Giuseppe, and then we can go around, yeah?
in one line, difficult to compress in one line. But definitely technology trend, I can say, is to have, let's say, centralized processing power and integration with IoT system. This is to compress everything in one line.
Thank you. Jayadev, go ahead, please.
Yeah, technology, for me, more safety, connectivity is going to be there, going to come up. And yeah, as also said, and maybe a more optimal, rationalized architecture for electronics.
Thank you, Jayadev. Jagdish?
Yeah, more it will do with the IoT integration to become a consumer ease and human interface in a better way. Second is the supply chain of the overall EV system, which will be it batteries or motor powertrain or whatever those are there. These are the key areas to make the transition to EV. Yes.
Ram, your perspective, you guys are the disruptors in the market here. What is your perspective on this, Ram?
I think Ram has gotten disconnected. We can move on to Manohar, maybe.
Sure. Manohar, please.
So, as we have been speaking, I believe the content of electronics and the computing capabilities would increase. This is a challenge and an opportunity. And I would say it's an opportunity because we can then strive to make the two-wheeler itself safer, more comfortable, and also keep the excitement of riding a two-wheeler. We often forget that part, especially in India, that two-wheeler is also a source of riding thrill for many of the guys. Of course, responsible riding. So it's an opportunity for us to address all these points and then have a positive impact on the riding community and possibly society at large, which brings us to the aspect that these all things will definitely improve rider safety, and that's something that I truly believe is going to come.
Thank you, Manohar. Ashwin, please.
For me, connectivity is a key word. Electronics that will drive connectivity to your smartphone, to your immediate environment, driving safety, to the cloud. If you have to talk about IoT devices, to your own components, when we talk about predictive diagnostics. So electronics that is going to drive connectivity is going to drive its adoption in the future in the Indian market.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashwin. And before I hand it over to you, Rohit, to all the participants, thank you very much. And to the panelists, thank you for taking your time. I tried to cover a lot of the questions that were actually posted in the Q&A. We didn't get through to all. I will forward these to the relevant panelists and we will get back to you. So again, thank you very much for taking your time off. And now, Rohit, I hand it over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us for today's live session on two-wheeler electronics technology. I hope you enjoyed this session and found it useful. I first of all would like to thank our speaker group for taking out the time from the busy schedule for this. Really appreciate that support. Secondly, I would like to thank our wonderful audience for the inquisitiveness and their attention. We received around about 40 odd questions. Couldn't get to all of them, but as Girish mentioned, we will try and answer more of these in the days to come. And lastly, I wanted to take this time to especially thank our partners, Infineon Technologies and Bosch Limited, for supporting this session. It means a lot. And thank you all for joining us for our first session of 2020. We have many more sessions lined up for you. So please stay tuned and do join us for the same. And hopefully we will move to physical events very soon. What with the great news on the vaccine and the related rollout, can't wait to meet you all in person and shake your hands. However, in the meantime, here is a goodbye from all of us here at Two Wheeler Forum. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.